low to avoid detection by his quarry below. A sharp pin pricked his neck. Britt swiped at the mosquito. The blood-sucking bastards had been especially bad this summer, and he could do nothing to protect himself other than wearing long everything. If he applied bug spray, he might as well flash a beacon, notifying the wolves of his arrival, so keen was their sense of smell. He set his pack and walking stick aside and lowered himself onto the grassy, rock-strewn ground. He inched forward commando style until the ravine came into view. Dense stands of tulip, maple, and oak protected the understory and blocked out much of the Carolina sun. Even so, large shiny-leaved rhododendrons filled empty spaces, as did longleaf bluets, frostweed, and snakeroot. North of his position, where one side of the creek bed rose 12 feet high before leveling off to create a shrub-laden shelf, a familiar pile of dirt led into a shadowed nook. Low branches made it difficult to see the den with the naked eye, but Britt knew what to look for and where to look for it. Setting his binoculars in place, he focused in on the nook, which was 2 foot wide by 1.5 foot high. The small, dark cavern provided shelter to the breeding female and her 4-week-old pups. Given the lateness of the hour and no sign of adults outside the den, the breeding male must have taken his small pack hunting. 5 pups, 3 females and 2 males. Before he'd left for a construction conference, he, his mentor, Miranda Shepherd, and friend, Deke Conrad, had flushed the breeding female from the den, so they could check on the pups and take blood samples. Although earlier tests had confirmed that the breeding pair were full-blooded red wolves, Britt had wanted to remove any lingering doubts about the pups. Movement just inside the den caught his attention. The pups were stirring. He wondered if their floppy ears had gone erect yet. The breeding female, Calypso, poked her broad nose outside the den, sniffing the air. Then she eased through the opening until the upper third of her body was visible. She glanced inside the den and soon, one by one, the pups tumbled out of their protective shelter. Sensing their untethered freedom, yet too frightened to venture far, the pups loped along the creek bed shelf, tackling each other, relieving themselves, and chasing unsuspecting critters. Their ears were a mismatch of 1 ear up, 1 ear down, 2 ears down, 2 ears up. Calypso watched over her brood like any long-suffering mother who'd given up on teaching her children how not to pick their nose at the dinner table. He'd seen the expression on his own mother more times than he could count. Britt pulled his phone from his pocket, zoomed in to take a couple still shots, then hit the record button. Before long, the tension that had riddled his body began to fade, and he found himself smiling at their antics. Now, he wished he'd taken the time to stop by Barbara's place instead of coming straight here. She would have loved witnessing this milestone. After several days of conference ed, all his mind had been able to manage was a simple list of instructions. Airport, home, equipment, den. His senior by 20-odd years, Barbara could out-trek him and had more guts and grit than most men. After one lively conversation about coyote management, Barbara had adopted him as her unofficial student. She'd volunteered hours of her time toward his education. To this day, he couldn't fathom why someone with a Ph.D. in animal behavior from Duke would spend a second of her precious time with a rough-around-the-edges country boy like him. He'd asked her about it once, and got a simple answer in reply. Passion is worth 1,000 Ph.D.s. I can teach you how to transect a study area, but I can't teach you how to care about the findings. She tapped the left side of her chest. That kind of wisdom comes only from the heart. Britt stopped the video recorder and stared down at the wolves. A sense of overwhelming helplessness seeped into his good mood, melting his smile back into its familiar no-nonsense lines. Would he and Barbara and Deke be able to do right by the wolves? They needed constant monitoring to make sure they weren't overcome by disease, shot by farmers, or caught by trappers. The odds of surviving extinction in the wild were already stacked against the red wolf, and now, for this isolated pack, the odds had hit hope-killing proportions. He followed the pup's movements for a while longer, then backed away from the edge of the bluff. Collecting his gear, he headed out.